under control for American families.
Thank you.
We're in the midst of a cost of living crisis here in this country. Donald Trump and Republicans promised to lower the cost of living on day one. Costs aren't going down, they're going up. Electricity prices through the roof. Housing costs up. Grocery costs up. Child care costs up. And now Republicans refuse to do anything to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which is going to result in tens of millions of people experiencing dramatically increased premiums, co-pays, and deductibles. It's out of control. It's a cost of living crisis and it's a health care crisis at the same time. And yet Republicans continue to ignore it, refuse to deal with it. And on top of all of that, we're in a moment where millions of Americans are about to increase their experience with heightened food insecurity, with hunger, because of the one big ugly bill and the fact that Republicans enacted the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history. These are all quality of life issues that have to be dealt with right now. And yet Republicans want to talk about process and their my way or the highway approach, their take it or leave it approach, which is what they've been visiting on the American people this entire year in terms of their extremism. And it's all unacceptable. Just come back to work, let's sit down, let's negotiate a bipartisan agreement, let's reopen the government, let's address the high cost of living in the United States of America, let's address the hunger that you're creating, and of course, let's address the Republican health care crisis.
Mr. Leader, given the rampant misconduct we're seeing among immigration agents, most recently on Canal Street yesterday in Chinatown, New York City, do you think eventually ICE should get the Doge treatment?
We've all been very outspoken as it relates to the out-of-control behavior unleashed on law-abiding immigrant communities by mass agents hiding their identity and far too often violating the rule of law, often directed at people who are American citizens. And it's all unacceptable. And it's one of the reasons why the American people have turned on Donald Trump and Republicans with respect to their extreme immigration policies. We should be holding the Department of Homeland Security accountable for the overreach and the extremism that they're being subjected to in terms of what the American people are experiencing. And yet, we're seeing none of that accountability coming from Republicans. That's unfortunate, but Democrats will continue to make the case to the American people that this is all abnormal, so much of it is unlawful, and it's got to stop.
Mr. Jeffries, thank you. Good afternoon. Can you or Ms. Clark allude to this question about using the health care subsidies and using the end of government funding as an inflection point? The idea that in the minority you don't have many opportunities to say, okay, here's what we want, here's what we need. Can you talk about using that, and is there concern about pain that's being inflicted on federal workers here, because there's like, this is the strategy that we've chosen?
So our position is not about strategy. Mike Johnson and the Republicans keep talking about strategy. What we're focused on as Democrats is making a difference in the lives of the American people. Because the American people deserve better than what they've gotten from Donald Trump and extreme MAGA Republicans, who haven't made their life better. They've made their life worse. Their life has become more expensive. And now because of the Republican health care crisis, that includes the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers closing all across America, including possibly dozens in Alabama, as was announced earlier this week, and now because of their refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans are about to experience dramatically increased health care costs that will medically bankrupt them or prevent these Americans from being able to go see a doctor when they need one. These are real life consequences of extreme Republican policies. That's what this moment is all about. And as Democrats, we're gonna continue to stand with hard-working federal employees who've been under assault by Donald Trump and his administration since January 20th of this year, prior to the start of the Trump Republican shutdown. More than 200,000 federal employees had already been forced off the job by Donald Trump. That's before the shutdown. So it's unfortunate that Trump and the Republicans have chosen to use their own shutdown to further hurt the American people. Why our position continues to be, come to the table, let's reopen the government, let's enact a bipartisan spending agreement that makes life better for the American people, and let's address the healthcare crisis that's devastating people in working class America, in rural America, in urban America, in small town America, in the heartland of America, and in black and brown communities all across America.
Yeah, let's rewind the tape a little bit here and talk about how we got here. Donald Trump promised the American people, I will love and cherish Medicaid. And if you remember, when they were going through their budget process, they took $800 billion, said we're gonna come out of a specific committee. And we said, those are gonna be cuts to Medicaid. What do we hear from our colleagues across the aisle? Where does it say Medicaid? Where does it say that? We're gonna protect Medicaid. When they knew, oh, well, they were going after people's health insurance. We have been trying to meet with them, talk to them, use the appropriations process to cut a fair deal. It's this theme that I've been talking about, that why do you go after the American people who are struggling to get by? Why is that the bargain? That we are going to pay for tax cuts for the very wealthiest of Americans and corporations with the hard-earned dollars of the American people who want and are entitled to be able to afford health insurance. And what have we seen since they're gonna love and cherish Medicaid? Dramatic cuts, $1 trillion, 15 million people at risk of losing health insurance, $500 billion out of Medicare, these cuts to the ACA, taking away the tax credits that keeps premiums affordable for people, and all for what? So they can make permanent tax cuts for the very wealthiest and drive up the deficit at the same time, telling hardworking Americans, not only gonna be hard today, it's gonna be hard for your grandchildren into the future to pay off an economy that we are rigging against you. That's the message to the American people. And Democrats are saying, by rejecting their CR, enough is enough. Enough is enough. We cannot go along with this extreme agenda. And their choice was to cancel even coming to Congress leading up to the date of the shutdown. They have chosen this shutdown, and they continue to make it punitive to federal workers in a way that I've never seen any administration do. That they are choosing who they like, who they don't. We have always come together before any shutdown, no matter which party was, had policy disagreements over what, and said, we will come together in a bipartisan way and pay our troops.
The White House just said in the past hour that it was Democrats who were essentially being punitive by saying, let's, let them cut some of those programs and we'll use this as leverage. What's your response to that?
I would put that in the category of love and cherishing Medicaid and lowering your costs on day one. It's an outrageous, they have been attacking federal workers. Their goal was to inflict trauma. Whether it is firings, proposing that some people will not get the back pay that they are entitled to get under federal law in this shutdown, making things as difficult as possible. I mean, the way they have treated workers, whether they're federal workers or hardworking people in our community who are trying to provide for their families and are struggling to do that. It is just a let them eat cake moment. You know, you just fend for yourselves, because we'll tell you who we're working for. Those who already have great wealth and power, full stop. So they can say whatever they want, they can issue and try and spin the context. Federal workers know who's on their side. And working people in this country are watching what is happening and watching them put them last. You get in line. Your tax credits that help you pay for insurance premiums, those expire. Those for the very wealthiest, we're making those permanent in the very same month, in the month of December. It is outrageous. And the fact that they aren't even showing up, you don't even show up to do your job, is something that it is no wonder that that the American people are showing up and 7 million strong at rallies on Saturdays, but also showing up in poll after poll saying, this doesn't work for me. The system was already rigged against me, and now it's getting worse due to your policies. So they should really look in the mirror. And if they've decided that cutting people's health insurance in order to give the wealthiest people in this country a tax break is a bad policy, we are here to meet with them and talk about how we can undo this. Let's put the people back into the proposition here and end this shutdown.
Thank you.
No, right there.
Oh, me?
Third row.
Leader Jeffries, what advice are you offering Illinois Democrats right now who are considering redrawing their maps? And do you share any reservations about potentially diluting Democratic strongholds?
As was the case in California, it's my expectation that Illinois Democrats are going to carefully consider their options and make sure that they draw the fairest map possible for the people of that great state in the context of Donald Trump's efforts to gerrymander congressional maps all across the country, including most recently in North Carolina, because Republicans are running scared. They know that if the election were held today, they would lose the House decisively, and that's why they're trying to rig the midterm elections.
So are you supportive of the redistricting efforts?
Same answer. Third row.
Oh, me? Sorry. In about a week, House staffers will start to miss their first paycheck if the government shutdown continues to drag on. What kind of guidance have you given to offices or staff about this upcoming deadline?
Yeah, there's been ongoing discussions with our hardworking staff. These are great patriotic Americans who are all in on public service, all in on serving the people that members of Congress are privileged to represent across the country, and we'll continue to provide them with a lot of information. The hope is that we get this shutdown resolved before the end of the month. We've been maintaining that position from the very beginning of the Trump Republican shutdown. Well, Republicans have had they shut the government down. All the Republicans talk about every time they stand at this podium or appear on TV, from the speaker on down, all they talk about is the American people gave them unified government, complete control of government. We control government. This is what Republicans say. We have a mandate. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They shut the government down. They reinforce that point every time that talking point comes out of their mouth. And what Democrats are saying is that we want to find a bipartisan path forward, but that involves good faith negotiation on the other side of the aisle, so we can come to a common sense resolution in ways that are actually designed to make life better for the American people. We're fighting to lower the high cost of living. We're fighting to fix the healthcare system that Republicans have broken. And we're also fighting to clean up corruption in Washington, D.C., where we have an American president behaving like an organized crime boss, stealing taxpayer dollars in real time in front of everyone in plain sight. And the Republicans have nothing to say about the emerging crime scene at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Thank you. November 1st is coming up quite soon, and more Americans will get those premium notifications. What is the or is there a strategy change once you hit that date and then beyond that date in terms of how Democrats are viewing the shutdown, how you're messaging, and what we can all expect going forward?
Our view has been very clear from the beginning. One of the reasons why we need to act decisively and need to act now as a Congress to address the Affordable Care Act tax credit issue is because notices are going out to millions of people right now as we speak across the country, frightening them to death when they see that their premiums are about to increase, in some instances, by more than $1,000 or $2,000 a month. And more than 90% of the people who receive Affordable Care Act tax credits make approximately $63,000 a year. Think about that. How can you possibly afford premium increases of more than $1,000 or $2,000 a month? And as open enrollment starts on November 1st, more and more Americans are going to realize the urgent need for Congress to act decisively, as Democrats have been saying for weeks. But Republicans continue to bury their heads in the sand because they'd rather keep the government closed than provide health care that's affordable to working class Americans.
Thank you so much. Can you just speak to some of the programs that Democrats want funding for in the $1.5 trillion list of demands? We've heard things like $13.4 million for civic engagement in Zimbabwe, $3.9 million for LGBTQ democracy grants in the Balkans, things like this. You guys say this is about saving healthcare, but how do these pet projects fit in?
Yeah, we have no idea what you're talking about or what Republican extremists fed you those talking points, but the reality is what we are doing is defending the health care of the American people. Yeah, we do want to restore the fact that the largest cut to Medicaid in American history has been visited upon the American people by Donald Trump and Republicans, even though they promised to love and cherish Medicaid. But instead of doing that, they cut about $1 trillion from Medicaid. And as a result of that fact, hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing all across the country, including in Republican states, like Georgia, like Alabama, and Republican states all across the country. And Republicans have visited the largest cut to Medicaid in American history on their own people. That's what we want to restore. We want to avoid the fact that because of what Republicans did in their one big ugly bill, what they did is to trigger the possibility of a $536 billion cut to Medicare, because Republicans have put a bullseye on Medicare and Social Security since those earned benefits were created. And yet we have a problem with the fact that Republicans want to devastate the Medicare of the American people. And why did they do that? Why did they cut Medicaid by almost $1 trillion? Because they want to reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks. And they made those massive tax breaks permanent, while at the same time can't even be bothered to extend Affordable Care Act tax credits for working class Americans who are about to experience dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles. The American people know that Democrats are fighting for them, for working class America, for middle class America, and for everyday Americans, and that Republicans continue to show up for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. Yeah.
The new congresswoman from Arizona, Speaker Johnson keeps saying that his antics and stunts, whatever you're doing, and he says the new lawsuit is for national publicity. Would you care to comment on that?
Well, let me yield to Catherine and Pete as well. I had the opportunity yesterday to stand with Jamie Raskin and Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva after Democrats tried for the 5th time to be recognized so that Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva could be sworn in. 4 weeks have passed since she was elected. And the reason why Mike Johnson and House Republicans refused to swear in Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva is because they want to continue to hide the Epstein files from the American people. That's crystal clear at this point in time. There is no other reason that this has dragged on this long when extreme MAGA Republicans who were elected out of the state of Florida underperformed in those elections, by the way, dramatically, as Republicans have been doing all across the country, and as we'll see in New Jersey, in Virginia, and in California in under 2 weeks. Those two extreme MAGA Republicans, these are individuals who aren't even qualified to serve in the People's House. Let's be clear about that. And yet Mike Johnson decides to swear them in less than 24 hours after these extremists are elected to the House of Representatives, and now 4 weeks have passed. The reason why they continue to unlawfully block the swearing in of Adelita Grijalva is because they are actively hiding the Epstein files from the American people, and they're protecting someone clearly. The wealthy, the well-off, the privileged, and the well-connected.
Yeah, I just think this is so shameful that someone who won with 70% of the vote, by the way, the vote total that she had was a larger percentage than the two Republicans that they swore in. So, under his own standard, right, we need to swear her in. She has a certificate of election from the Secretary of State in Arizona. It is absolutely shameful that Speaker Johnson hasn't given her the oath of office. Members were sworn in during the government shutdown 6 years ago. A new class of members took their oath of office. None of these excuses actually mean anything, is what Leader Jeffries just said. These are just talking points because he doesn't want to swear her in to be the 218th signature on these Epstein files. That's just what it is. But for her, and I know Adelita Grijalva is more concerned about her constituents than she is about her. This is about 800,000 people in the state of Arizona who don't have a voice here on Capitol Hill until she takes office. So for those people who are reaching out, who need help and support, who are navigating federal agencies, veterans who need VA appointments, those individuals don't get the help and support because they don't have a member of Congress. They can go to their senators, and we encourage them to do that. But it's absolutely shameful that Speaker Johnson will swear Adelita Grijalva in, and it really does beg the question of, what are you hiding? Why not? How easy can this be? Pro forma session, swear a member in. It's not that hard. Speaker Johnson needs to do the right thing.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. Wondering if you could comment, the Pentagon is implementing some new policy with regards to communication with members of Congress, apparently centralizing that through a specific office. How, from your perspective in Congress, would that affect the day-to-day operations here and your visibility as a co-equal branch of government into what's going on there?
Well, this is just another example, and by the way, Pete Hegseth, the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in American history, and an example of the type of extremists that have been rubber stamped by Republicans in the Senate. They know these people were unqualified. They put them into office, and now they're continuing to undermine American values every single day of the week, as opposed to actually doing their job. And from our perspective as Democrats, listen, we're not going to bend, we're not going to break, we're not going to bow down to any wannabe king as it relates to upholding our oath of office and standing up on behalf of the American people. The Republicans were confused as we began to deal with the spending bill issues that we're confronting right now on behalf of the American people. They're very confused because all along, Donald Trump knows that House and Senate Republicans, they function like a wholly owned subsidiary of the Trump cartel. That's how they act. They just rubber stamp Donald Trump's extreme policies and they move on. Don't say anything about it. Boss says jump, they just say how high. That's how Republicans have behaving all year. Our thing is that, no, we are a separate and co-equal branch of government. We don't work for Donald Trump, we don't work for J.D. Vance, we don't work for their MAGA billionaire donors, we work for the American people. And that's why we're standing up for the health care of everyday Americans. And that's why Democrats are in this fight until we win this fight. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, you too.